You knew this was coming. The weirdos at ScreenRant are already calling for Christianity to be removed from the Netflix adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia. We have a headline here by Patricia Hazel. Netflix's Chronicles of Narnia reboot using the original books' ending would be a huge mistake. Absolutely absurd, and we will explain to you why, given the fact that that is the whole point of the books, and that is something that C.S. Lewis made very clear in his own writing. Nevertheless, we have Patricia here saying, the Chronicles of Narnia books conclude with the last battle, but this final chapter may not work as the ending for the upcoming Netflix reboot. Netflix's The Chronicles of Narnia should not stick to the original ending, as it may alienate viewers due to its heavy religious undertones. That's the point of the books. So, no. The current fantasy landscape calls for refreshing twists and turns, so Netflix must carefully decide which parts of the source material to keep and which to get rid of. No, that is not what we want. We want actual adaptations. The current fantasy landscape calls for adaptations of the source material. Those are what will get rewarded. If you deviate from that, they get punished. The examples are numerous. Just look at Wheel of Time and Rings of Power. I think you're going to see an absolutely massive decline from Wheel of Time when its second season debuts. I think you already saw that when people were basically tuning out halfway through, me being one of them, and I'm a diehard Wheel of Time fan, read all of the books, and just absolutely tuned out because the only thing they got right was the design of the Trollocs. Everything else should have been thrown in the waste bin. You then have Patricia saying there are opportunities to finesse the ending by making changes, such as avoiding explicit mention of the crash and including Susan's presence to strike a balance between honoring the source material and providing closure for all characters. So Patricia goes on and says it would be a huge mistake for Netflix to use the original ending of the Chronicles of Narnia in its upcoming reboot. In the ever-expanding landscape of television adaptations, Netflix's ambitious venture into C.S. Lewis's timeless fantasy world has ardent fans awaiting its release. While the prospect of revisiting the magical realm and its beloved characters is exciting, faithfully adhering to the source material could prove a monumental misstep. Absolutely not. That is what they need to do. They need to follow the source material. That is how you get people to subscribe to Netflix to see a faithful adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia. If you do not do that, people are not going to subscribe, and you might actually lose subscribers that are already subscribed. You are not going to get new people. I can tell you that right now. You just won't happen. And then as for, just kind of give you some background, Netflix, I think, announced this, back a couple years ago. Hasn't really been any movement. We just got movement now during the Barbie promotion where Greta Gerwig confirmed that she was actually directing 2 movies within Netflix's The Chronicles of Narnia. They're supposed to be doing movies and television shows as well. So we'll see how that goes. They got the rights and the blessing of Lewis's stepson. So that is where it kind of is in production. I don't even know if they're actually, I don't think Gerwig's actually been writing a script or anything like that. She was even contemplating whether she might, the last I saw was she was contemplating whether she might do it or not. She said she was kind of scared about maybe putting pen to paper on whether she wants to write it. As far as I'm concerned, I think they need to get rid of her. After what we saw with Barbie, should be nowhere near the Chronicles of Narnia. Nevertheless, here Patricia goes on and says, with its reboot, Netflix seeks to captivate contemporary viewers and introduce the Chronicles of Narnia to a new era. The current is already they're trying to push this stupid modern audience crap. No. The current fantasy landscape calls for refreshing twists and turns, as well as story arcs and characters that resonate with modern audiences. No. Why don't you just keep the story arcs that already resonate in the Chronicles of Narnia? It's still a best-selling series of books for children. I don't understand why you would change the formula that works. Hollywood thinks they can do this. They think they can write the novel that J.R.R. Tolkien never wrote. They think they can rewrite C.S. Lewis and people will like it. No, you cannot do this. The roadmap is already there. It's in the novels that C.S. Lewis wrote. The Chronicles of Narnia books were published in the 1950s, so adapting them for present-day viewers could prove a challenge for Netflix. No, it won't. Stop this. You keep saying this, but you're not providing any reason for why it would be hard to do it. We're doing Dune. It's getting a faithful pretty much faithful adaptation. There have been a little bit of changes, but it's been pretty faithful. We'll have to weigh its options carefully when deciding which parts of the source material to keep and which ones to get rid of. The actual ending of the Chronicle of Narnia's novels won't work as the ending to the upcoming Netflix adaptation. In the realms of literature and fantasy, few works have captivated readers. Blah, blah, blah. The timeless tales of Narnia have always been steeped in allegory, mainly influenced by Lewis's Protestant Christian beliefs. The story's heavy religious undertones, particularly at the end of the final volume, The Last Battle, risk alienating those from other faiths. No! The whole point is he's trying to convert people to Christianity. Like, what are you even talking about? If they get alienated, who cares? Like, they're watching it. The whole point is he wrote it to try and to convince people to learn about Jesus Christ and the gospel, which we'll get to. Even those who share that faith may not wish to see such a heavy-handed portrayal in an escapist fantasy series. Beyond the issue of religion, the ending of Chronicles of Narnia is bleak and unsatisfying. The sudden demise of all but one of the main cast is disheartening. Moreover, the ending focuses on characters introduced only in the final book, creating a sense of disjointedness from the overarching narrative. If Netflix follows the outline of this original ending, it risks sparking controversy like Game of Thrones. To avoid falling into the same pit. No, the reason that Game of Thrones has controversy is because George R.R. Martin didn't finish writing the books and they just winged it based off his notes. Like, that's the reason why that is. And it was a crappy story and didn't follow through on the obvious character arcs that he had laid out. That whole series is nihilistic, and the ending should be that I don't even know what you call him, the Witch King or whatever he is, the ice guy comes in and kills everyone, and he wins because they're all too busy bickering and fighting with each other, and they don't unite, and they die. Like that, it's a tragedy, and that's how it should have ended, as a tragedy. To avoid falling into the same pitfalls, the Chronicles of Narnia must navigate a delicate balance between preserving its timeless charm and crafting an ending that appeals to the diverse sensibilities of all this is like, you need to get rid of the Christianity because I don't like it and I'm going to try and justify it by contemporary viewers. No, absolutely not. This is a garbage excuse. This is the whole point of why Lewis wrote this. I don't even think I need to go through this anymore. It just looks like a bunch of crap. Let's just get to what Lewis wrote here. I'm going to scroll to the bottom. This is from Sometimes Fairy Stories May Say Best What's to Be Said in his On Stories and Other Essays on Literature. So let's go back up to the top here and we'll see what Lewis had to say about writing the Chronicles of Narnia. He says, some people seem to think that I began by asking myself how I could say something about Christianity to children, then fixed on the fairy tale as an instrument, then collected information about child psychology and decided what age group I'd write for, then drew up a list of basic Christian truths and hammered out allegories to embody them. This is all pure moonshine. I couldn't write in that way at all. Everything began with images, a fawn carrying an umbrella, a queen on a sledge, a magnificent lion. At first, there wasn't even anything Christian about them. That element pushed itself in of its own accord. It was part of the bubbling. Then came the form. As these images sorted themselves into events, i.e. became a story, they seemed to demand no love interest and no close psychology, but the form which excludes these things is the fairy tale, and the moment I thought of that, I fell in love with the form itself, its brevity, its severe restraints on description, its flexible traditionalist, its inflexible hostility to all analysis, digression, reflections, and gas. I was now enamored of it. Its very limitations of vocabulary became an attraction, as the hardness of the stone pleases the sculptor, or the difficulty of the sonnet delights the sonneteer. On that side, as author, I wrote fairy tales because the fairy tales seemed the ideal form for the stuff I had to say. Then, of course, the man in me began to have his turn. I thought I saw how stories of this kind could steal past a certain inhibition which had paralyzed much of my own religion in childhood. Why did one find it so hard to feel as one was told one ought to feel about God or about the sufferings of Christ? I thought the chief reason was that one was told one ought to. An obligation to feel can freeze feelings, and reverence itself did harm. The whole subject was associated with lowered voices, almost as if it were something medical. But supposing that by casting all these things into an imaginary world, stripping them of their stained glass and Sunday school associations, one could make them for the first time appear in their real potency, could one not thus steal past those watchful dragons? I thought one could. So he's clearly telling us here that the man in him began to use the fairy story, these images that came into his mind, with the lion, the queen on the sledge, etc., to break through kind of what he saw as this like austere Christianity and break through to that to children, to other people that might be interested in this fairy story, and explain to them Christianity in a different way. And honestly, this is a lot how Jesus Christ explained things in parables. He spoke in parables to the people on their terms, and I think this is very similar to what C.S. Lewis did in the Chronicles of Narnia. And to try and take that out is to take the essence of the story out. And I think he makes that very clear in this brief part of his essay right here. So ScreenRant doesn't know. ScreenRant knows exactly what they're doing, and in my opinion, what they're doing, trying to remove the Christianity from the Chronicles of Narnia, is straight evil.